The G20 Summit in New Delhi ended on Sunday as India handed over the bloc presidency to Brazil.
The two-day G20 Summit has concluded in New Delhi. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has handed over the presidency to Brazil.
As the 2023 G20 Summit draws to a close, it is evident to say this was not just another G20 Summit. No, it was a seismic event that promises to reshape the geopolitical landscape. The crowning moment of the summit was the inclusion of the African Union as a permanent member. But that was not all. The geopolitics among major powers has never been so intense and open. Look at the names etched into this roster. The United States, China, India, Japan, Russia. Each a juggernaut, but facing their own set of problems. Kind of problems that they've never faced in their history. But the challenges they face are as immense as the opportunities they wield. Welcome to the analysis of epoch-defining G20 of 2023. Chapter 1. Why is G20 important? During the late 90s, economies were teetering on the brink. Crises were rippling across continents, and a clarion call for a global steering committee was felt. And thus, in 1999, amidst the embers of economic turmoil, the G20 was born. Initially, an assembly of finance ministers, it quickly morphed into a juggernaut of leaders, a nexus of economic might. Each year, a member nation takes the helm, setting the agenda and steering the discussions. In the aftermath of the 2008 crisis, when Lehman Brothers crumbled and economies around the world spiraled, G20 emerged as the dark knight in shining armor. Then came 2020, the pandemic's cauldron. The G20 no longer remained a meager choice. It became imperative. The G20 up till last week comprised 19 individual countries and the European Union, accounting for over 85% of the global GDP. These nations hold sway over international economic discourse. And it's not just about economic prowess, it's about bringing together nations that hold the reins of global politics, cooperation, and sustainable development. Chapter 2. Why was 2023 G20 special? African Union. On 9th of September 2023, during the G20 New Delhi Summit, the African Union became the newest member to join the coveted G20 group. This has been a great feat of achievement for both the G20 as well as the African Union. It's a tale of transformation that started in 1963 with the birth of the Organization of African Unity. But it's the African Union, born in 2001, that brought renewed purpose. The African Union today is an assembly of 55 African nations, a beacon of unity in a continent with diverse histories, cultures, and aspirations. The African Union joining the G20 is a move that reshapes the global landscape. How did this monumental shift occur? India, with its G20 2023 presidency, played a pivotal role. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's proposal to grant the African Union full G20 membership was the catalyst for change. Global support rallied behind the idea. Key players like the USA, European Union, China, and Russia threw their weight behind Africa's rightful place in the G20. It wasn't just an African dream, it was a global aspiration. G20, a forum of the world's most influential economies, now has a new member state, Africa, a continent representing 17% of the global population. But it's not just about representation. It's about the opportunities that Africa brings. Africa is a treasure trove of tremendous resources, both natural as well as human. Economically, Africa is a sleeping giant. Its GDP is poised for exponential growth, and its markets are ripe for investment. The AU's entry into the G20 is a proclamation to the world. Africa is open for business. Chapter 3. 2023 G20 Speciality. The tussle among big powers. Let's delve into the intricate web of geopolitical forces with a spotlight on the heavyweights: USA, China, India, and Russia. Let's start with the United States, a behemoth with a GDP exceeding $21 trillion, dictates economic policies that resonate worldwide. Its influence spans trade, finance, and innovation. The US, while holding the reins of economic power, is grappling with problems like never before. Even after throwing everything that's possible, inflation has remained its Achilles heel, and it's not in any mood to go away soon. Dollar has never faced such a tremendous challenge in the global arena. The division between the Democrats and the Republicans has never been so wide and deep. Its trade deficits, especially with China, are not going down. Then there's China, an economic powerhouse clocking in at over $18 trillion, knocking double-digit GDP growth for the last 2 decades. But since after the COVID-19 pandemic, its economy has taken a nosedive, real estate bubble has burst. Local state governments are unable to repay their debt, and youth unemployment is touching the sky. Its ambitious Belt and Road Initiative is losing money like anything. China's problems are so dire that its president, Xi Jinping, chose to brainstorm solutions to the problems rather than attend the G20 Summit. The third player is India, a rising force with an economy north of $3.5 trillion, standing at the crossroads of tradition and modernity. While its demographic dividend and tech prowess are propelling it into the global limelight, yet it contends with regional disputes and the challenge of lifting millions out of poverty while maintaining its strategic autonomy. Its defense forces in its north are stretched thin by Pakistan on one side and China on the other. While private and public investment growth is better than other major economies, it's still very small when compared to the size of India's population. And let's not forget the thin line that India has to balance in partnering with the West while still maintaining a good relationship with Russia. And lastly, there's Russia, a geopolitical maestro wielding its influence through energy dominance and strategic partnerships. With a formidable military arsenal, it still commands attention on the world stage. But due to the ongoing crisis with Ukraine, Russia has encountered geopolitical isolation like never before. While the Europeans struggled initially with their energy supply, it's just a matter of time for them to find other, long-term alternatives to Russia. Russia is on the verge of losing the only thing that makes it relevant in the global arena: its abundance of natural resources. Chapter 4, 2023 G20 Speciality, Other Factors. While the inclusion of the African Union in G20 and the never-seen-before challenges faced by the big powers made the 2023 G20 unique and special, they were not the only factors at play. Let's delve into the remaining 3 paramount topics. First on the group's agenda was the climate imperative. Our planet stands at the precipice of a disastrous ecological crisis. The numbers don't lie. Global temperatures have risen by 1.2 degrees Celsius since the pre-industrial era. The Amazon rainforest, often hailed as the lungs of the Earth, is vanishing at an alarming rate. A staggering 17% of it has been lost in just 5 decades, accelerating the pace of climate change. The Paris Agreement, a landmark accord, aims to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius. Yet many nations are falling short in their commitments. It's a race against time, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Next, the group ventured into the uncharted territory of the digital frontier. The rise of cyber warfare and the battle for data sovereignty pose unparalleled challenges. The metaverse, an evolving digital landscape, holds tremendous promise. Yet, it also raises profound questions about privacy, ethics, and the boundaries between reality and virtuality. Finally, the group addressed the critical issue of economic resilience. The aftershocks of the pandemic continue to reverberate, exposing vulnerabilities in our global financial systems. Developing nations grapple with mounting debt burdens, a stark reminder of the imbalances that persist in the global economic order. As the G20 torch passes to Brazil from India, let us carry forth the flame of progress, knowing that the destiny of nations and the aspirations of humanity are intertwined.